What's going on, guys? Chuck here, and if all things go well, it is Christmas, so Merry Christmas to all of you. If things didn't go well, Merry Christmas anyways. So, I thought I would take a moment to look back at, um, I don't want to say a forgotten gem, but a forgotten Christmas movie nonetheless. One that was supposed to be, it was going to be a future Christmas gem, and unfortunately didn't quite work out that way. And of course, I'm talking about from 1985, Santa Claus the movie. Now, Santa Claus the movie was produced by Alexander and Ilya Salkind, who are well known for being the producers of the original Superman series of films, along with Supergirl and the Superboy TV series. Around this time, they're coming off of the disappointment of Superman 3 and Supergirl, and at that point, I believe they sold off the Superman rights to canon, and we all know how that goes. See Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. But they wanted to venture out into something different. But, the Salkinds are always big in spectacle, and what better spectacle than Santa Claus? And the thing about this movie that I remember, I was 10 years old when this one came out, because I remember it being so heavily hyped. I mean, it was everywhere. There's merchandising everywhere. It went Santa Claus the movie, Santa Claus the movie. There was some promotional tie-ins with McDonald's. I'm pretty sure with Coca-Cola, which would make sense because the modern interpretation of Santa Claus is because of Coca-Cola, so why not? But definitely McDonald's, which is very prominent in the film too. But yeah, it was everywhere. It was hyped up. I remember storybooks, so many things. It was going to be huge. And then the movie came out, and it was not huge. In fact, it was a dud. And it ended up being the last major production that Alexander Ilya did. I think after that, they probably may have. I don't know if it was after that, not long after they kind of had a party of the ways for whatever reason. But that was their last big production. To give you an idea of the disaster that Santa Claus the movie was, let's look back at the numbers here. This was released on November 27th, 1985. It was budgeted between $30 to $50 million, and it took in $23.7 million. So, yeah, it was a dud. And then just as quickly as it came out, it just vanished and disappeared, and never to be heard or seen from again. And it was like that's what happened. Because I remember, it's so funny because I never saw it when it came out. I admit it. I just knew about it, and I don't know. Maybe there's part of me that says maybe I saw parts of it on cable as a kid, but I don't really remember. It's a blur because honestly, I don't really remember seeing the film until a few years back when I, really set myself out to watch it. But looking back at now, I think maybe I maybe came across it once or twice on HBO or something like that. But still, it was a film that had so much hype about it and so much, grandeur. I mean, these are the people who did Superman. I mean, what went wrong? Why was the movie so such a disappointment? And so I never got to. It was one of the things I was really not available to many places as far as I could tell. Not that I really looked, honestly. A few years back, some Christmas ago, I got in my mind, you know what? I need to find Santa Claus movie. I got to watch Santa Claus movie. And I streamed it on Amazon. I found it. And I watched it, and I thought, you know what? This isn't a bad movie. I mean, it's a bad movie, but it's not, there's a lot of good in here. And I don't think it deserves the reputation it's been given as like the worst Christmas movie ever, or anything like that. I think, I think it I don't know. But it's got heart. It's trying, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But I mean, this movie's got Dudley Moore, John Lithgow, David Huston, who is doing such a great job as Santa Claus. I think he's wonderful as Santa Claus. David Huston, you'll know from The Big Lebowski, and oh, was just there a second ago. Oh, Blazing Saddles. Dudley Moore, Dudley Moore. um, but these, but Burgess Meredith has a cameo at one point as an ancient elf who's got this really long hair. But the movie, I think the problem with Santa Claus the movie is that it's very uneven. It's you have the first part, which is so good in my opinion. It's the origin story. I mean, this is basically it's a superhero origin. This is what this is. This is like Superman, more or less. I think this is what the Salkind's trying to do, is make Superman but Santa Claus instead. Because you've got this origin story of this old couple, not old couple, but this childless couple who brave these winter weathers up north to these villages, wherever, to bring toys to all these kids. This is what he does. It makes them happy. He brings them every Christmas. And there is all this up in the high north of the Snow Mountains or whatever they are. I forget the what they're called. But basically elves. But they have given some other name before they announce as elves that live up near their toy makers, or whatever. But they're in the hidden mountains. But the couple gives toys, and they rush out because they deliver more toys. But the weather's so bad, and then they make it. But oh no, Donner and Blitzen. He's got two reindeers. They're on a sled. Donner and Blitzen. It's Claus and his wife Anya, and they call him Uncle Claus. The kids all call him Uncle Claus. He doesn't have a first name. He's just, no last name. He's just Claus. So Claus, and Anya Claus. I don't know. But they go out and they get, trapped in treacherous weather. And from all intents and purposes, they freeze to death, more or less. Sorry, spoiler warning. People haven't seen the movie from, almost 45 years or whatever, 40 years ago, whatever it is. And it's, so that's the impression you're given. It's not really said that, but that's kind of what you're given. And then, the north wall opens up and it's this bright, like the North Star opens, and you have this Christmas tree image. And it's almost like, again, it's equivalent of the Fortress of Solitude opening up, and the elves come out, and they come back to life. And basically, we've been waiting for you all this time. The prophecy foretold of a toy maker who would come, and he would be a wise man, childless couple, blah blah blah. Make her toys and distribute all the kids, and there you go. They you bring him into the fold, and you meet all the elves, and the workshop, the North Pole workshop. It's basically every old-fashioned Santa Claus cliche, I guess you could think of, is done there. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that look at it, it screams like 19. And of course, again, this is like, what is it they say, like the Middle Ages with this beginning. But all throughout the movie, the workshop just looks at you. If you look at old-fashioned, 30s, 40s, images of, North Pole elves. Santa. I mean, this is what it reminds you. Norman Rockwell-ish in a sense, maybe a little more bright, but it's. Again, it's. I say that it's every cliche, but I mean that in the best way, because it really invokes a sense of Christmas. It does. You look at it, and say, yep, that's. As a kid, that's Santa, that's the North Pole, those are elves. They're making those wood toys that no one ever sees, but only in in Christmas movies and shows. And from that point on, you have the great elf, Burgess Meredith, his silent cameo, which apparently was supposed to be originally, was it James Cagney they wanted, which would have been interesting. I didn't realize he was still alive at that point, but I guess he was actually like almost 90 and he was too old to do it. but that would have been interesting. But when christening him, it was Birch Meredith, ancient elf, christens Claus as it's like a real Darth Sidious thing. Henceforth, your name shall be Darth Claus. No, Santa Claus. And they show how the reindeer eat the special seed that makes them basically roids them up and gives them a psychedelic fix, and they all take off and fly. And from that point, you get the montage of all through the centuries of him doing his job and learning the little, which I think this is a sweet part, because you're looking at all the stuff that how some of the myths or the legends become, like the kids writing the letters to Santa. You have one point where a boy is tormenting his sister's cat, and Mrs. Claus says, "Well, I don't think he should get anything." And Santa's like, "Well, kids should always every kid should get a toy." She's like, "Well, if I don't, I don't want people saying Santa only gives kids or toys to the nice kids." And she's like, "Well, shouldn't that be the way it is?" Which, come to think of it, yeah. So he tells his head elf, "Hey, make a list of naughty nice kids, and be sure to be thorough, because I'll be checking it twice." See, that's cute. Then they go on and they talk about the "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" poem, and make fun of his bowl full of jelly line, which I think is adorable. It's again the whole reaction to the elves, and it's like that haven't really seen me, and then like, "It's the cookie, sir." It's stuff like that that's cute. It has its heart, and it feels very Christmassy. And this is the strength of the movie, is that when it's doing that, it's showing its love of Christmas and trying to pull you in. Is it schmaltzy? Sure, in that 80s way. There's no question about that. But I really think that it comes from a good place. It really, I mean, I was all smiles during this whole part. I got Christmas vibes, and it was great. And that's awesome, and that's what you want. Throughout this, you've got Dudley Moore, who is Patch. He's kind of like the thinker elf. He's the Hermie elf, if you will. But he doesn't want to be Dennis. He just has ideas, He's the the thinker elf. He's always got trying to how to make things better. He's the mass producer guy. We're gonna talking about production. It's the future forward thinking elf. And to the point where Santa's he's too bogged down, so he needs an assistant. Comes down to Patch and another elf. Patch gets the job, but his quality control is kind of off, and the toys go out, they're bad, and Santa gets a bad rep. First of all, this is where I kind of lose with the movie, is because you're watching the mass production machines, like they're falling apart clearly, and how are they not noticing that then before shipping the toys out? And that part always like whatever. But again, it's a movie. I should really just relax. Anyways, he comes back, he resigns, he runs off to the big city, much like, Buddy the Elf, except it's Dudley Moore. And then this is where the movie kind of loses you, unfortunately, because where it has the first part is front loaded with a lot of heart and sweetness, you get into the comic bookiness of it, and it falls off the rails pretty quickly. First of all, Santa meets this homeless kid, Joe, played what's his name? Played by, let's see here, back up here, a Christian L. Fitzpatrick, who didn't do much of anything else from what I could tell. I think his only role was in a movie with Judd Reinhold, and I can't remember what it was called. It was like oh my God, it was right there, but it was like a body flip movie with Judd Reinhold and Fred Savage, so he wasn't even a star in it. And that was it. And he's playing your typical stereotypical New York kid on the street, leather jacket, dirty face. He's tough, he's got the Brooklyn accent. And honestly, the kid actors are not very good. They're not good at all. Which, they're kid actors, granted, but they're not. Jenna Swart, who was the director, didn't really bother to get too good a performance out of them. But then again, I'm sure they're thinking it's a kids movie because that's basically, let's be honest, this is a kids movie, so who cares? Just saying. I don't know. Maybe try A is best. I don't know. But yeah, so Santa meets Joe and he feels sorry for him and befriends him, and then I should also point out that Joe has made friends with the rich girl. What's her name? Cornelia, played by Carrie Kai Heim, who, again, another girl who didn't do much of anything else. He had like a TV show or two after that, appearances, but nothing else. But she looks really familiar, like I've seen her somewhere. Maybe, well, she was in Parent Trap 2, apparently. Maybe I saw her. I never saw Parent Trap 2, but I know I've seen ads for it. Maybe that was it. But she's like the rich girl who takes, pity on him, leaves him some food to eat. And they end up forming this weird pseudo love friendship thing, even though they're like 10. I don't know, it's weird. I don't know the dynamics they're going for here. But what's weird is, Santa takes Joe around, and then when they stop at Cornelia's house, and they realize that they see each other, he's like, well, I'm going to leave. You want to stay here with her and get yourself some food, and I'll see you back next Christmas, and leaves them there. So Joe's still homeless. and he's not going to stay with Cornelia, and Santa, and sure enough, Santa will come back next year, and Joe will still be in that same jacket, still homeless. That's weird. Nothing changes for Joe in that year. Not even his clothes. And Santa's left him homeless. That part boggles the mind. So you have that weird dynamic, but the really part, and even that part is still kind of sweet because you see, where Santa is, he's taking a liking to Joe because, again, he feels bad for him because the thing is, him and Anya never could have kids. That's why they, being, they said, as the ancient elf said, he'd be father to all the children of the world, in a sense, and he's taking a liking, to Joe and feels sorry for him. Not enough to take him under his wing, but just leave him out there for more years homeless. But nonetheless, he likes him. There's sweetness in that. There is. Again, this movie wears its heart on its sleeve, just proud, so for all the world to see. And then it gets chewed right off by the appearance of John Lithgow as BZ, this cigar chomping toy businessman, toy maker, moldy businessman. He's a cigar chomping, mustache twirling, bad guy. I mean, he's chewing the scenery for all it's worth. He's extremely over the top. He is he is taking this every scene that Lithgow is in. He is taking it for a ride, and he's not coming down. Which at some points is fun. I think at some points he's actually, making fun of himself in some sense, but sometimes he's just making fun of material. And there's some scenes like when him and Dudley Moore having this, back and forth, which almost seems like it's improv, where he's like a cigar and he's blowing a smoke and he's, having a conversation. He's blowing it in Dudley Moore's face and he's choking. I almost feel like that's an improv because it looks so, just how it comes across. But I mean, John Lithgow was just chewing the scenery left and right. And like I said, that's where the movie kind of falls apart because it becomes really cartoony. He's a really bad toy salesman. He's a lot like, if you go back to classic Saturday Night Live, there was a character that Dan Aykroyd played. He was a really slimy toy manufacturer. He was always Jane Kerr would have him on his like talk shows and talk about his bad toys, like a bag of glass or some other stupid stuff like that. And he talked about they weren't that bad, how the toy telephone could, this toy telephone is, really dangerous. Look at this, you put this thing, wrap it around your neck and kill you. That's, that bag of glass is nothing. That's a nice friendly toy. But that's kind of what John Lithgow's character kind of reminds me of. But basically, he's in trouble. He's trying to figure out, he's how to get back on good graces for people recalling his bad toys, and then sort of Patch shows up, and he's like, hey, because Patch, he wants to get back under Santa's good graces, so he decides, if BZ makes toys, I can make you this fantastic toy, put it out for free, which freaks him out because free, we don't do free. But he sees, BZ sees that if it's free, I can get my reputation back up, and then we'll charge all we want later for it. So he, creates this floating lollipop, or a lollipop makes people float using the reindeer dust, whatever. And it's a big hit, And at this point, Santa feels like, well, what's the point? Maybe Christmas isn't, people don't believe anymore. It's, I'm not. He's down on himself, This is the hero, moment where the hero is second guessing himself. Like I said, this is a superhero movie, a traditional superhero movie. You have the origin, his rise. Now he's having his crisis of faith, and he's got his finest redemption arc. That's basically what the Salkind is doing right here. And when BZ realizes that his cash cow is going to leave him, meaning Patch realizes that his toy works and go back to Santa. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to amp the thing up. He wants to create Christmas 2 because everyone loves a sequel, which I thought was hilarious, actually. March 25th, we'll have this stuff in production. By March 25th, we'll call it Christmas 2. And now put Santa out of business, which is just hilarious and, so stupid. But endearing at the same time. I lie. I got a chuckle out of it. I'm not going to lie. There's a thought of Christmas 2. Because you know what? In this day and age, I could see that happening. People have Christmas in July, so it's not that far-fetched. That's basically what Christmas in July is Christmas 2. The Reckoning. So he, forces Patch to make this whole, candy canes, this stuff, which is always the material he uses, the reindeer dust, is always, chill because it's from the North Pole. But apparently it gets heated, it is volatile, and it explodes. No one knows that. But they find out eventually. Well, and they're going to distribute it, and, BZ doesn't care. He's going to put it out there. He's going to run away. No one's going to, we're going to let all the Patch take all the heat. At this point, Cornelia and Joe Joe is still homeless, but he's still seeing Cornelia. They're seeing a lot of each other, but he's still homeless. And he comes over. He's got a fever. She's letting him stay in her basement, and that's when they. Also, I should mention, John Lithgow turns out to be her step uncle. Coinky dink. But they overhear these plans, and they gotta get to Santa. And of course, Joe was captured, and and John Lithgow was like, put him on ice, like the classic 1930s villain to a kid. It's hilarious. So they whisk him away, and Cornelius sends a letter to Santa, who immediately jumps in action. Get the reindeer going. We gotta save our friend, and he's off and going, even though it's only been, they just came back from, because it's like just after Christmas. It's January, and the reindeer, are tired, and 2 of them have the flu, so they're down to 6, and we got to get to Joe and save him. And at this point, Patch finds Joe because he's been held down in the workshop where Patch is building this delivery car sled thing he uses to do the delivery of all these gifts. And he basically takes Joe. We're going to, he hears from Joe what happened, and we're going to get to the North Pole, and he's got all those candy canes in his weird car that makes Pac-Man noises. Yes, Pac-Man noises. And they're off, and of course, Santa's chasing after him, and the canes are getting heated, so they're going to explode, and Santa's trying to, get there, get to him. It's comes down to the super duper looper that Santa has to get the reindeers to do this trick where he has to do a loop over to somehow catch the exploding car, which didn't make sense to me because the sled that, here's a sled that Patch and Joe were in. Santa was right here behind them, and we have to do the super duper looper to save him, about to explode. So he goes underneath him, and he passes him. I think, well, right about there, couldn't we just have Joe and Pat just jump out and get in your sleigh right there instead of doing this big thing to flip all the way over here so this could blow up and you come down here and catch him? That seemed a little risky. But I'm not Santa Claus. I don't know. So yeah, car blows up. Super duper blooper. Santa saves the day. Um, Everyone goes back to North Pole. The kids stay with Santa because Cornelia doesn't have to go home. Apparently, I get Joe finally got a home. But Cornelia just, can I stay till next year? Sure, why not? I'm sure your step uncle just flew away. From the cops with he took a couple of those floating suckers that Patchett made and flew away from the police and ended up in space, breathing perfectly fine. Sure, it's like Superman 4. So maybe John Lithgow floated over to Cannon too. And yeah, that's Santa Claus the movie. But again, you see, it's easy to see where it fails. Like I said, the first half you've got, I think it's sweet. There's a lot of heart. It feels very Christmassy. Then when you get into the evil toy guy and the cartoony cigar shop, it really just falls apart and it's just, I don't know. They lose a tone that they originally had and it hurts. And it becomes a goofy spectacle. And it's a shame because I think they really could have had something good, really good there, be more memorable if they didn't have that hokiness at the end. It could have kind of kept it straight. I don't know. I don't know what it could have been. Maybe it was something more credible threat that wasn't so silly. And I get it. Again, it's a kid's film. I get that. And so you can't look at it and say, well, it's not adult enough for me because it's not made for you. But even as a kid, I think I might, well, no, I probably wouldn't as a kid, honestly. I think it's fine and cool. I wouldn't be breaking it down as much. Like, oh, yay, Santa won. Super duper blooper. But, I don't know. It just, it's like going back to another Salkind production, Superman the movie. What kept that good? And this is what was missing here. What Richard Donner was so good about Superman the movie, verisimilitude, making it all seem real, taking it all seriously, And I think the first part of Santa Claus does that, and in the end, it becomes a comic book, and it doesn't feel. It feels more goofy. It's not like it doesn't feel as real. Even Superman the movie, obviously the whole, Krypton, Smallville, it's all played straight. It's when he gets into Metropolis, this is where the chance you could go off the rails. But no, everything's played straight. There's some fun moments there, but for the most part, it's played straight. Again, Richard Donner, verisimilitude, and that's what Jon Swart did not quite accomplish with the second half of Superman, Santa Claus movie. And what's with the Salkinds in the movie? Technically, when you watch it, it's just called Superman, and it's just called Santa Claus. But when they advertise, it's always the movie. It's like Spaceballs. The movie, Superman versus Santa Claus, the cup. So yeah, that's where I think it needed a little more seriousness at the end to make it to bring it all home, and it missed that. Again, because you've got good performers in here. There's, David Huddleston, I think, was really good as Santa Claus. He just comes across as very loving, caring, jolly. He comes across as a sweet Santa Claus, and I really like that a lot. I found it interesting that looking at researching this, that apparently John Carpenter was in talks to direct this movie. Can you imagine what that would have been like? John Carpenter's Santa Claus. I would love to see that, actually. But he had wanted Brian Dennehy as Santa Claus. But the producers didn't think that Dennehy was approachable enough as a Santa Claus, which I would have to agree. Not saying Dennehy couldn't do it, but he's not who I think of when I think of Santa Claus. You know, he doesn't come across as fun and cuddly. I mean, in today's world, possibly, when you got Kurt Russell as a badass Santa Claus in the Christmas Chronicles, when you Snake Plissken as Santa Claus, and sure, maybe Brian Henry would have been good. But 1985 Santa Claus, no. 1985 Santa Claus is, cute and cuddly and sweet, and that's David Huddleston does all that. A diamond in all this, which I think goes underlooked, is Judy Cornwell as Anya, Mrs. Claus. She is so damn sweet and adorable. She's probably the best on-screen Mrs. Claus I've ever seen. And, because there's so many that are so prominent. Mrs. Claus is usually just a throwaway, character in most cases, with the exception of maybe the Christmas Chronicles 2 and the Santa Claus 2, 3, and the TV series. But even then, that's a whole different kind of Santa Claus. The Mrs. Claus you see in Santa Claus, the movie, is going back, again, traditional Santa Claus. I mean, she's just has a look. My God, her face is so sweet. It's just like, she's like your sweet grandma. Oh my God, and she is so loving. She is like just a heart. Every time I see her, I'm just like, I just fall in love with her. I just want to give her a big hug. She's just so sweet and kind. My God, I just love her. And I just, it's like she just shines every time she's on screen. It was wonderful. But another thing to say about Backlash 4 was the McDonald's branding, because there's a huge scene. McDonald's is prominent, and you have Joe starving, staring into window McDonald's, watching people, close-ups of people eating hamburgers and nuggets and sucking down the drinks. Obviously, he's starving because Santa Claus left him out there for a year. But I mean, it's so blatant. And then that's the big one, because again, there were, I believe, McDonald's may have had souvenir glasses also. I know there were souvenir glasses of Santa Claus movie. I'm pretty sure they were with McDonald's when that used to be a thing back when fast food restaurants did that. And they'd have to, considering that this was such prominently featured in this movie. Between that and Coca-Cola, there's a great scene where Cornelia, she lays out the food for little boy, which she's. I'm sorry. I watched this and I had to laugh when she said it, because he's looking in the window and she's having this elaborate meal, and she sees him. Obviously knows he's starving, so she makes a plate for him and looks out. Oh, excuse me. Opens the door, looks out. Little boy, and I couldn't help but think of Gene Wilder from like Young Frankenstein. Oh boy. But she lays the food down on the stuff, and she puts a can of Coke label out, so you can clearly see it says Coke. It's hilarious, but an old-fashioned big Coke on the side too. And I gotta say, that can of Coke looks so delicious. I was jonesing for a Coke at that point. I'm a Coke addict, and I really wanted that. But it was so like, because she put it down and made sure that label was out. It was great. So yeah, that's very, very product placement friendly. So yeah, I mean, it's not looked at very fondly. And it's a shame, because I think it doesn't quite deserve the reputation that it's got. Like I said, is it great? No. Is it a masterpiece? Absolutely not. But it's fun. I think it's a fun family, definitely kid-friendly Santa Claus movie. This is strictly a kid movie. And, honestly, tonight, my local drive-in was showing it. And I really wanted to go see it, but peek behind the curtain, I've been sick the last 2 days. Well, when I'm recording this, okay, I'm hoping to have this out on Christmas, but I'm recording this way early. I get peek behind the curtain. But I've been sick bad last 2 days, so I didn't want to risk it today. First day I'm starting to feel better, so I didn't want to go out to the drive-in, which is a shame. So that's why I just pulled the projector and watched it at home myself and decided to reevaluate it. But yeah, it's a fun family Christmas movie. Will it ever be a classic? Probably not, but I don't see why it can't be if not an every year watch, maybe an you feel like something different. You get tired of A Christmas Story or Elf or whatever else, pull out Santa Claus the movie. You'll have fun, you know. And hey, you'll believe a reindeer can fly. See, they missed a chance at that. They use it for Superman the movie. You'll believe a man can fly. Instead of seeing is believing, they should put you'll believe a reindeer can fly. That would have done it. But yeah, you're looking for something different on Christmas. Check it out. Have fun. Bring the family around. Have a good laugh. You know, enjoy John Lithgow chewing the cigar and the scenery all around him. Um, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find something in there you didn't expect to find. That there's a little happiness and joy and a little Christmas spirit in Santa Claus, the movie. If you enjoyed this, click thumbs up, share, subscribe, leave me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen Santa Claus the movie, or if you know of any other obscure Christmas film that you like that people think are not very good. I'd love to know about them. Or just say hi. I'll always take hi. So until next time, this is Chuck saying I will see you on the other side, and Merry Christmas.